What's up? What's up? What's up? It's Cayman Wolf, the Decrepit Gamer. We're back for Project Ravenloft, where we're building the classic Castle Ravenloft in Minecraft. If you want to get caught up on this series, the link is right up here. I'll also put it at the end of the video and in the description of the video so you can go back and catch up with where we are in the build. Today we're looking at the subterranean levels, the larders of ill omen and the dungeons and catacombs. And I gotta tell you, of everything I've built so far, these have been probably the most challenging to, first of all, I had to dig away all of the dirt under the castle and then build down instead of building up. And also they don't really, the shape of the subterranean levels don't match the shape of the rest of the castle because they don't have to, because they're underground. The walls haven't been raised yet, but there was some particular challenge in creating the just the layout of the floor plans, and so we're going to talk through those. And so let's just jump right into it. All right. So as I'm working on these subterranean levels here, the larders of ill omen and the catacombs, dungeon and catacombs. So the floor plan for the larders of ill omen is completed, and I've shown that. Now I'm working on the dungeon and catacombs, and I've got to tell you, of all of my entire experience thus far building this castle, for the most part, with just very few exceptions, everything has fit together extremely nicely. Like this blueprint was created by an architect or something. I mean, it's just really come together nicely. The dungeon and catacomb level is not playing as nicely. I mean, it's not bad, but everything is not fitting together, I feel like, as intended. And it could very well be that they've just taken some creative liberties here, or maybe not have been as careful with it, making it all fit together as with the rest of the castle because it's a subterranean level. I'm really not sure. Or it could just be I'm looking at it wrong. I don't think so, and I'm going to show you why. But I mean, it could just be that I'm looking at something incorrectly and causing something not to fall into place here. But I'll show you the big dilemma here that I'm facing. This tomb right here, K88. This is the tomb of Pharaoh of Ravenovia, who I assume that is some sort of very important figure, maybe in Strahd's lineage or the founder of Barovia or something like that. I haven't reread the module that deeply in order to get that much backstory. I'm focused more on the description of the rooms and the layout of the castle at this point. But the point is that his tomb is the largest and centered in the catacomb level. And when I was building this catacomb level, my first concern was that I was going to run out of room here because this hallway here was so long and these catacombs were so wide, and this was extending toward the rear of the castle. This is the back side of the castle right here where that landing juts out over the town of Barovia, where you can look down on Barovia. And this actually is so long that I was like, I'm going to run out of room here. I'm going to come running right out the edge of right out the side of the mountain. Well, that's here. That's right here where I've gone ahead and pushed all the way through to drill through to the side of the mountain just to see how much room I was going to have. And as it turned out, that wasn't a concern just because of the shape of the mountain. So there's a slow rise there until we get to the point where the castle was built, and then it's just been kind of terraformed to accommodate the castle. So we weren't at risk of punching through this slow rise right here. But look at the difference between what I've got here and what's actually shown on the map. And this is really going to highlight the dilemma that I'm facing. On the map, this tomb comes forward right in the center of the catacombs. And if you go over here and you look at the picture right here. Now I know there's a double image right here because of the fold in this module cover on which the back of the map was printed, but just ignore that. Look, this is from this point down. If you look at this picture, you see this right here. This is that tomb that's jutting out from the side of the mountain. So I was correct. I was like, I was afraid I was going to run out of room, and I literally was going to run out of room because this is intended to extend past the front of the mountain. And if we read the description here of K6, it says, dead leaves turn spirals about your feet, wheeling and careening over the stone railing. Dark surging clouds overhead drizzle constantly. This is why I was considering, by the way, making it always raining on the Ravenloft server. I'm still on the fence about that. But anyway, by looking over the edge of the stone wall, you see that you are on a construction jutting out at least 20 feet from the cliff face. The gray, dismal town of Barovia is 1,000 feet below, and a set of dirt-caked windows are set into the cliff face, 110 feet below the platform. Okay, so then it's describing here that it's 110 feet and that the characters would have a hard time getting there and what they would have to do if they decided that they wanted to try, for some reason, try to enter the castle that way. But that's neither here nor there. The point here is that this tomb is exactly centered under this overlook. And you can see that right here. Now, when I build this thing, in accordance with these blueprints, it's not exactly centered. It's off center by 20 feet, which means 20 feet is 10 blocks, because we've got three blocks. Remember, 1 meter per block, so 3 blocks per 10 feet, and then 1 block per line on the graph paper to represent a wall. So that's 5 feet per 5 blocks per 10 feet, and then there's 20 feet, so that's 10 blocks, or actually 9 blocks, because the one wall that divides the two would just be one block thick, so that's 9 blocks. So you're actually talking about 9 blocks. So I mean, that's substantially off center on this map. And you can see that here. Here I am in the catacombs, or what's going to be the catacombs. I've put these floor tiles down here to make sure that I'm lined up correctly. And here I'm going to go. Now I know I should have done this on the floor. I was kind of flying around when I decided to do this, but I punched through the wall here, and this is where I've punched through. And then we can turn around. Here, let me get rid of this tree right here so we can see what we're looking at. So I turn around and I look up, and you see how off center I am? Yeah. So why am I off center so badly? And that's what I've been beating my head on my desk trying to figure out, because I cannot find a reason as to why, except that that portion of the map just may not line up exactly, which wouldn't hurt a thing if you were running the game, and describing all of these things to the characters. I mean, it really wouldn't hurt a thing. But when you're actually trying to build this thing against that map as a blueprint, that 20 feet is huge. It makes those things not line up the way they're depicted and the way they're described. And so I'm saying that I think that I've built it in accordance with the blueprint. And the reason that I'm saying that is, if you look at this, this is where I started, right here. This is the place where I started building the catacombs, the dungeon and catacomb level. And the reason that I chose this is because this spiral staircase right here is K21 right here, and it extends up from the catacombs up through the Larders of Ill Omen. I used it to line up the Larders of Ill Omen, which worked very well, by the way. They aligned almost perfectly, except for one little place over here I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then it goes up through the ground floor of the castle and extends clear on up through the second floor, and it just continues going up for quite a ways. And so it extends down through the center of that spiral staircase, extends down through numerous levels, and can be used to ensure that everything is lining up correctly. So if it lines up correctly against that spiral staircase, and then over here it lines up correctly against that staircase, and you can feel pretty sure, in this spiral staircase, and you can feel pretty sure that everything is in the correct place. And everything has been. But this level here is off by 20 feet. And I have used this staircase, and then I've done this hallway to the correct dimensions, this hallway to the correct dimensions, this to the correct dimensions, and I've counted and recounted the squares and the square footage and the squares on the graph paper, and it's just a little bit off. There's really only a couple of places in here that I can see where what I'm looking at, I could be looking at incorrectly, or they could have intended something that I'm misinterpreting. And one of those places is right here, this gap between the spiral staircase on K83, which you can see that is 20 foot in diameter, that spiral staircase, 10, 20. And then there's a gap between K83 and K80 right here, this hallway. I see that as a 10-foot gap, and I just cannot see that as anything different than a gap of 1 square on the graph paper. If that were extended out to 20 foot, that's still, that would help, but that still wouldn't, that would only be an additional 10 feet between that spiral staircase the way I have it now and the way I would be misinterpreting it if this was intended to be 20 feet. But that additional 10 feet still would not make up for the 20-foot difference between this thing being off center. That would only make up for 10 feet. So I would need to come up with another 10 feet somewhere else. And I just do not see where to do it. This also, this spiral staircase right here, K18, this thing runs clear up to the top of the castle. This is one of those spires that go way, way up, and it runs up through all of these floors. And right here, it lines up perfectly with tomb K88, just like it does right here. So, you know, this extends up through the first floor. So it's just off, guys. I mean, it just has to be. If there's somebody else that's just very, very familiar with this module, or an architect or something, and can look at this thing and see where I'm missing something, please, for the love of God, let me know in the comments, because I have racked my brain over this and I just do not see that this aligns. It just doesn't. But you know what? That's not that bad. It's really not. It's okay. It's okay that it doesn't. I have a couple of options there. I could force it to align by just extending something out, making something a little bit longer, just making something else not agree on the map. You know, extend these catacombs out a little bit, or extend these stairwells a little bit, or you know, something. I could make this room a little bit longer. Matter of fact, that would probably be the thing to do. Actually, would be to add space to this balcony right here. That would probably be the least obtrusive, least noticeable, most elegant thing that I could do if I wanted to do it that way. I don't think that's the way I'm going to handle it, guys. I don't think it is. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it continue to be misaligned and just keep everything else, the dimensions that they are shown in the blueprint, and just let it be misaligned. And the reason I say that is because something, okay, look guys, here's the thing. Something is going to have to not agree with what they're depicting in the module. Something. And I know that simply extending this out an additional 20 feet, this balcony right here, to move all of this stuff back by 20 feet and make everything aligned, would probably be the least obtrusive, least noticeable change. And I know that changing this such that this tomb does not extend out underneath this balcony is a more substantial change. However, I feel like by doing this, we're creating another entry point into this dungeon that may not. Let's put it this way. In the description of this area, K6 of this module, they make a pretty big deal of how difficult it would be to get down to those windows. And I think that what they don't want, I don't want to say don't want, but I think they realize that if characters did that, it could make the module not play as well. And so what they did was, they, like good Dungeons and Dragons module designers, they presented the characters with a choice, and the characters are free to make whatever choice they want, but there's one choice that leads more directly to the module playing well than playing less well, if that makes sense. And I think that honestly, I may just really not want this. I would rather not have this sticking out there. This is a subterranean level anyway, and I'm not sure why they did this, with the exception of maybe in this description here, they talk about the stained glass windows and the tomb being dimly lit by stained glass windows, and that creates a nice ambiance, I think, and it would in here as well. And these are the stained glass windows, but I may just forego those. The other thing that's not playing very nicely on this map is this K83 extends up here to this room right here, K83A. And what happens at K83A is that is a landing that connects two different spiral staircases, one of which is the spiral staircase that begins right here at K83A and comes down here to K83 in the dungeons and catacombs, and the other one extends up to K37 here. So that this is on the third floor of the castle. This is Gertruda's room right here. I believe this is the study. This is the dining room over here. This is the study with the fireplace right here. So this has been in place since I've started, because this goes up through the first floor of the castle. So K83 right here is depicted to be a 40-foot long landing. That's 20 foot for one spiral staircase and 20 foot for the other spiral staircase. However, down here on the Larders of Ill Omen, if K21 aligns correctly, remember K83 starts at the Larders of Ill Omen, starts at the subterranean level. It's not part of level 1 through 3, the above ground levels of the dungeon. So it starts underground. And when building the dungeons and catacombs, if K21, which does extend clear up to the top of the castle, clear up through the first, second, third floors of the castle, at least through the first floor of the castle. So it's been built since I've built the above ground levels. It aligns, if it aligns with the rest of the castle, with the whole rest of the castle, because remember K21, K18, K20, all of that stuff all aligns, all up through all three floors of the castle, all the way up through the spires. And so if K21 also aligns in the dungeons and catacombs here, then what happens is K83 cannot align with this K83A here, because K83A has to align with the entire rest of the staircase that goes clear up through to the third floor of the castle. That was already in place. So where this K83 starts here on the dungeons and catacombs and intersects the rest of K83 at the Larders of Ill Omen, this is only 10 feet between these two staircases. And 10 feet is all it can be, because that's the only way that everything else lines up. And that's what I'm saying, that this is the only floor of the castle where everything just doesn't fit nicely into the rest of the with everything else in the rest of the blueprint. It's the only place where that happens. It's not that bad. I can make up for it. This 10 feet right here, this is okay. This is a spiral staircase going up. This is a spiral staircase going down. They do not intersect one another. This one going up, I can give the stairs enough of a slope that this one going up right here, I can give the stairs enough of a slope that they will not clash. The characters, they won't bump their heads. They'll be able to fit under the stairs and all of that, and that it'll work. It'll work out. It's just, that landing is just going to be 10 feet shorter than it's supposed to be. Not that big of a deal, and I'm really not complaining about it. I mean, I readily admit that I could be misinterpreting something or looking at something incorrectly. I contend that I don't think so, but I could be. And even if I'm not, if something is off here by 20 feet, it's the only place where something like that has happened with the entire build of the entire rest of the castle, which you can see here how far we've gotten. Everything has lined up very nicely so far, with a couple of very minor exceptions. And it's really not that big of a deal. I can work around it. And players, I don't think, would ever even notice it or think about it, except for I'm pointing it out on this video because this is a build video, and people that are interested in the design and build of a mega structure like this might be interested in one of these nuances. But I don't think players ever really will be. I think they'll look at this and it'll look like Castle Ravenloft and it'll play like Castle Ravenloft, and they won't ever think about the way that we overcome these challenges here. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. I'm still building the catacombs, so we will come back when the floor of the catacombs has been laid, and then we're ready to start raising the walls. So here now I've finished the floor plan for the entire subterranean structure. So I did make a couple of changes since the last recording. So one thing is this landing right here, and I had talked about this previously. I had condensed this, kind of squeezed this together so that the entire landing only spanned a total area of 30 feet, and these spiral staircases were 10 feet closer together because that's the way the sort of the level just dictated that they lined up if I did everything in accordance with the map. So what I've done here is in this little walkway that's pictured right here, when you first enter the stairwell, see this is the entire stairwell, just spiral staircase just starts in the moment that you enter, and you can see right here that this column in the center is 10 foot from the entryway. And what I've done is I've just taken this entire spiral staircase and moved it 10 foot back to where it looks like, I mean, it looks to me like there is a 10-foot gap between this hallway back here, K80, and K83. And what I've done is I've just taken K83 and extended it back 10 foot so that it's kind of now flush with the back of this hallway. No one will ever notice that. You don't, it doesn't affect the hallway. It doesn't affect the interior of the spiral staircase. It just adds a little walkway right here, and that makes this line back up so that it looks the way it looks. It's where it's pictured here. And then that way this spiral staircase lines up, this spiral staircase lines up, and with that little extension right there, this spiral staircase lines up. Because if you remember, one of the things that I was talking about doing was just extending this entire room here by 10 feet, and I didn't do that. I just extended this spiral staircase right here. So like I had said previously, I am going to just continue to leave this entire Dungeons and Catacombs 20 feet off center from the way that it's pictured here, and I'm not going to have it jut out from the front of the mountain, which is okay really, because the mountain that I have the castle sitting on right now doesn't accommodate this. I would specifically have to terraform that mountain a little more to accommodate this, so that's fine. I just won't do that. But with that little change right there, everything else just falls nicely into place, and it, you know, and it all works. So that's good. So now I've got the very beginning of the walls. The reason I do this is because if I go ahead and put the very first block of the walls, and I can select one portion and then the other portion, and then use a very quick world edit command to just raise the wall, and it just raises the entire wall. So now we are ready to raise the walls on the first or the lowest floor of the subterranean levels, which is the Dungeons and Catacombs. And I'm calling this one level, but really it's not. Really, it's multiple levels. And you can see that pictured here. I mean, I was calling it one floor, or, you know, one level, or whatever, because it's all pictured, you know, on one map 12 of the module. But you can see here, this is at one level, this is at one level, this is at one level, and then yet this is at one level, and then these are at different levels. So that they're all, it's a multi-tiered structure, vertically speaking. This one, Larders of Ill-Omen, is a single level, but this one, you know, is multiple vertical levels, but it's all pictured on one map, and it all is complete now. So that's Larders of Ill-Omen up here, and then down here is Dungeons and Catacombs, all of this. And so I'm gonna raise the walls. I haven't decided yet how high the ceilings are going to be. That's not specifically mentioned in the text of the module. So, I mean, it's really up to me. I could raise the catacomb ceiling right up to the floor of the Larders of Ill-Omen. Of course, there's a wall right here, so I mean, it doesn't line up with the Larders of Ill-Omen. But what I'm thinking is I'm probably just going to make this ceiling 30 foot. So if I made it 30 foot, that would be to here. So that would be this, at this level right here, the ceiling would be this high. So there would be a little bit of a gap between the floor of the Larders of Ill-Omen and the ceiling of the catacombs. Yeah, so I like the 30-foot ceiling in the catacombs. It's nice, high ceilings. It allows me to put bats up there. The ceiling in here, by the way, is just covered with bats. The module says 1,000 bats, which probably would be impractical in Minecraft, but or may just make them spawn at certain times. I don't know. But anyway, it's a nice high ceiling, 30-foot high ceiling, and then that makes the ceilings in the tombs very high, because the ceiling will just extend out over the tombs at the same height. Then I will extend that ceiling down this hallway here, down into this is the brazier room. So there's a brazier that sits in the middle of this room, and this room does have a description of the ceiling height. It says here, this room is 30-foot square, rising to a 20-foot tall flat ceiling, gargoyle carvings smile, revealing their teeth from high upon the walls, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this one is 20-foot high. This ceiling here is described as being 30-foot high. This ceiling is described as being 20-foot high. And if you look at the description of K76 here, this ceiling, you see this balcony extends out into K76 and 10 feet above it. That ceiling is described as being 17 feet above the water, which is 3 feet deep. So that's very convenient, actually. That means that this ceiling will just simply be 10 feet lower than this ceiling. There'll be a wall separating them. It will extend out over the torture room. So this ceiling is 20 feet above the floor of the torture room with 3 feet of water, and that works out very nicely as well, because 3 feet is 1 block, whereas the 10 feet is it's roughly 1 block. 10 feet is roughly 3 blocks, so it's 3 feet and some change, but 1 block for our purposes. The water is 1 block deep. Yeah, so that works out very nicely. The dungeons here, their ceiling height is not described in the module. However, they're flooded along with this torture room here and this hallway here. The dungeons are flooded as well. And they're described as having 5 foot of water. So this area here is described as having 3 foot of water. This area is described as having 5 foot of water. So I think what I'm going to do, if that water just extended from up here, that would be actually a total of 10 feet of water, because 3 blocks is we're calling that 10 feet. It's actually a little bit less, but we're calling it 10 feet, which that would put the water over the characters' heads. And so I think what I may end up doing is raising this dungeon up to the same height as the hallway right here, because I can't have the water 2 blocks deep. That would be up to the characters' heads. They wouldn't be able to wade through it, I don't think. And it has to be at least 1 block deep, which this area here is described as having 3 foot of water, which would be 1 block. So that's going to have to deviate from this description a little bit, just because of the limitations of Minecraft. I would rather not have running water, because if the water here was at one height and this water was at a different height and there were running water on the stairs, that would indicate that there would have to be a source of the water. And I think what we're trying to achieve here is murky, black, still, kind of gross water that's just kind of still water that's just kind of sitting down here, maybe filled by by a very occasional drip or something from above ground, and it's just got nowhere to evaporate to. I don't know. I don't know. Letting my imagination run away with me there, but anyway, the ceiling, I was talking about the ceiling height isn't described here at all. So what I'm going to do is just extend this 20-foot ceiling on out over the dungeons in this hallway here, right up to the spiral staircase here. And then one other thing I was talking about in my previous video, in the Larders of Ill Omen over here, there was this staircase where these stairs didn't come down and meet this floor right here exactly where they were supposed to. They would have, the way I had it designed, they would have extended out, at least 10 feet into this floor here. This is the Kingsman's quarters, I think. And so what I was saying in my previous clip or my previous video, I was going to have to bring this stairway back another 10 feet. I ended up not having to do that. I just redesigned the way the stairs are structured in here. I gave them a little landing right here, and then I was able to just use the existing wall and keep things the way they are. The stairs just look a little bit different now, and they descend a little more sharply around this landing right here. So now what's going to happen is we're going to raise these walls, and then I think we're going to raise the walls up to the height of the ceilings that we've just talked about, and then we're going to fill everything else in with dirt. I believe World Edit has a fill command. I'm really hoping that that's going to allow me to very quickly do this with one command once I get everything in, it closed in on the Dungeons and Catacombs level, and then fill everything in with dirt up to the level of the highest ceiling of that structure, and then I will raise the walls of the Larders of Ill-Omen and fill that in, and then that'll be it. That'll be the subterranean levels done. But I will do that in the next video. I'm going to close this one out. And then in the next video, we'll raise the walls, and then we'll do a walkthrough of the Dungeons and Catacombs at least, and then maybe in the next video we'll get to the Larders of Ill-Omen, get those walls raised, and do a walkthrough there as well. Man, it's getting exciting, man, because I mean that'll be it. Once I do that, once I raise the walls, fill in those areas, that'll be the entire structure of the castle itself, the castle proper. Then at that point, I'll raise the exterior walls and put those battlements in place. And then that'll be it. That'll be the structure of the castle done, and we'll start working on the details. So that's very exciting. So if you want to continue to follow the building of Castle Ravenloft, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I'm working on it very diligently. If you're interested in early access to the Ravenloft server, there's a link to my Discord in the description. Just go out there and register for my Discord and hit me up, and I'll give you early access. I think what's going to happen is I'm going to put the thing on a server initially before I've put any kind of scripting or modding or anything behind it. Just put the castle out there with no mob spawns, and people can just do some walkthroughs of the castle, and you can give me your opinion on how it's shaping up. And probably what I'll do is I'll just put the server online periodically and just announce when it's going to be online as I'm building it, so you can go through and you can look at the rooms that I have done and give me some feedback, and man, I would really appreciate that. And so if you're interested in that early access, hit me up on Discord, and I will certainly let you know when it's ready for that. Yeah, but in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and close this one out. Hope to see you in the next one. And for right now, this is Cayman Wolf, the Decrepit Gamer, reminding you that you are never too old to game. And my friends, I am out of here. Woo!